Warning, this podcast contains violence, sexuality, gore, and other horrible and disturbing things. Listener discretion is advised. Also, the hosts of this venture are ignorant dipshits, so please do not take anything they say as fact. And enjoy the show.
Now, are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then we'll begin.
Today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be.
The atoms in your left hand probably came from a different star than your right hand.
It is our basic human right to be fuck up.
A second plane now has crashed into the other tower of the World Trade Center.
Putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
The defendant shall be incarcerated for the rest of her natural life with no possibility of parole.
You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men.
We were somewhere around Barstow, on the edge of the desert, when the drugs began to take hold.
Occultae Veritatis.
As the ladies and gentlemen and non-binary people out there in podcast land know, Leon has a new baby potato, so he is taking a little maternity leave.
His baby potato is so cute.
Yes.
We're all very happy for him and
Yes.
not at all mad that he's gone.
Yeah.
So for the next few episodes, we have the temporary crew, which includes Ood Gallifrey,
Sage Murray!
Leon Filger, who sounds a lot like Richard Bigley. It's like the Leon Filger you'd buy from that Wish app.
Yep.
And special guest robot, who I guess I'm not that special anymore.
No, you're not special.
It's not that special.
You're just a regular guest
Just a
now.
regular guest.
I think you're our most regular guest.
Is that right?
How many times
Fiverr
a
will
day?
I
do
would have
that
thought
to
it
you.
might have been you.
Yeah, how many times a day do you poop?
Oh, I don't know, once or twice.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty good.
I usually like to get a good one in when I get up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feel lighter.
Yeah.
A little spring in the
Well,
step.
it's because then I weigh myself after that.
If you do it at work, you get paid to shit.
Yeah.
You know?
No,
and that's really cool.
Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time.
That's my big trick about feeling great about weight loss is you weigh yourself before you've had anything to drink and after you take a big poop.
Yeah, there you go. Maximum low. Anyways, we need a little poison to dive into this episode.
Yeah, we do.
So, what's your poison?
So, what's
your poison?
An adult needs to open this.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Oh, shit.
there's a corkscrew right there.
I don't generally identify as much of an adult,
In this room, however,
but I do like wine.
Now-
it's not wine. Check it out.
Oh, what is it? Oh, it's Prairie Bee Meadery.
Yes.
We have a Raspberry Rapture Honey Wine.
Mm-hmm.
A product of Canada, 12.
It's from Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's awesome. I love Saskatchewan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, it's okay.
I know this.
myself in
There, yeah, you did it.
Yeah, there we go.
That took so much work.
You're very red.
That was really hard. My robot arms were not prepared for this task.
We're not.
I didn't.
You know, I have a goal set on the Patreon that when we get to 500 patrons, we'll start live streaming our recordings, and they're going to be able to tune in to classic moments like that. Cork failure.
Cork fail 2018.
Those of you that don't know Sage don't know that both of her eyes are made of glass, and she actually gets around by echolocation.
I do.
Yes.
I do know Sage, and I didn't know that. So is it echolocation like a dolphin or echolocation like a bat?
I was thinking like a bat.
Like a bat.
Or like the clicking, like that actual my eyes are not made of glass. Like that actual blind kid that like clicks to find his way around.
Oh, yeah, no, I read about that.
Yeah.
That's
Like
cool.
that's cool.
And she actually knows the art of flatulation.
Flatulation?
Yeah, when she wants to...
Oh yeah, you just fart.
Yeah, when she wants to see something behind her, see if she clicks, that sound goes forward. But if she releases just a really sharp fart, she can also hear the echo from that. And
Yeah.
yes.
That's a vestigial fear-based response from our early ancestors. You would release a fear fart in that situation.
Already. And the taste.
I feel like an elf.
Yeah, it's nice. It's not as good as mine because I didn't make it. But
Did you ever read the Redwall books?
Yeah?
I feel like this is what cordial would taste like.
Yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, mead is just honey wine. So it's usually honey and some fruits mixed together, and you just leave it alone for a few months. They probably do a few more steps in between to make this a professional product and all that.
This is really nice.
Yeah.
You know, put it inside the bottle instead of in just the bathtub, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's how you add your special flavor. Nobody gets bathtub flavor through a manufactured process.
Bathtub flavor. Sweet bathtub flavor.
Sweet and slightly soapy.
I don't know, this is good, but I think I like classic winter mead better. Just no fruit, just spices. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
I love it. I could drink this whole thing. I will give it a 9.5 out of 10.
I will do a 7 out of 10. Just starts off, you know, very fruity, but it kind of tapers off with like a really solid honey aftertaste.
Yeah, like a honey and like spicy, like clovey or something. I don't know what's in here.
Yeah.
I put this really solidly in the same camp. I put things like Moscato and Radlers, where it seems like this is something that it would be easy to just kind of crush a bottle of this on the porch with a friend over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Not much of a winter drink, though.
No.
I'll drink it whenever.
This is definitely like a brunch mead instead of like a cold winter night mead.
A brunch mead.
Yeah.
I could make a fucking banging mimosa with this.
Oh, you could make a banging mimosa with this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that would be good.
Feminist icon. Political activist considered one of Mexico's greatest artists. A true self-expressionist. Her famed unibrow and mustache is a masterpiece of folk art seen in dozens of her surreal self-portraits. Married to world-famed muralist Diego Rivera, her paintings are revered apart from his artwork. A rebel. The U.S. Postal Service placed her image on a postage stamp, making her the first Hispanic woman to receive such an honor. Recipient of the National Prize of Arts and Sciences, Frida Kahlo, genius.
Originally, like, shit the bed on finishing my LuLaRoe episode, which is what I was supposed to record. So I basically just printed out an essay that I did for a class last semester, and I got like 92% on it. So this is an essay that I wrote.
Oh, goody.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right. It's called Trauma and Triumph, an examination of pain in the life and art of Frida Kahlo. I hope you enjoy it. So many of Frida Kahlo's works feature a very raw and candid view of the female body. Her works, no matter how seemingly innocuous, always display a defiance and power that is unmistakable. Often her art delves into topics that seem to poke at the lizard brain of the viewer. Miscarriage, injury, and general unrest are common themes. Frida Kahlo has a wide and varied body of work. This podcast episode will focus on how her works both explore and narrate the pain and suffering that she was experiencing at the time. In addition, I'll discuss how themes surrounding taboo subjects and the honest way Kahlo portrays them makes the viewer uncomfortable and all but forces them to examine whatever preconceived notions they may have. Her works are very body-focused, which fascinates me. The combination of the reclamation of the female body through honest examination of her own body, politics, medical imagery, history, pain, and injury are some of the reasons why I chose to do this topic. So we will show images, because I reference images a lot in this thing. So the image, which is self-portrait with necklace.
I think probably a lot of people have seen that and maybe don't necessarily even realize it.
It shows Frida with her trademark eyebrows staring defiantly at the viewer. It is this resolution and steadfastness that initially drew me to her.
Yeah, I guess she's kind of going against cultural norms by even painting herself in such a way.
Oh my gosh, you just wait.
To begin with, her father was a photographer.
One of the exhibit's organizers in Tijuana, Mario Echeveste, tells CCTV that Frida Kahlo's father, himself a noted photographer, was one of her earliest and greatest influences. A young bohemian named Karl Wilhelm Kahlo from Germany, who so detested his stepmother that at 19 he left home and sailed alone for Mexico, quickly changing his first name to Guillermo upon his arrival. Guillermo Kahlo became well known for his portraits of noteworthy Mexicans, among them then President Porfirio Diaz. Though friends said Guillermo's greatest pleasure was seemingly his own self-portraits. For example, this nude he snapped of himself that was a bit scandalous at the time in 1892. So basically her father was like taking selfies of himself back in the day.
Yes. There are many selfies he took. Let's see.
Frida Kahlo, from an early age, had grown accustomed to being photographed, from her childhood through her teens, and after her bus accident, a painful period said to have turned Guillermo old and gray almost overnight, and Frida would ultimately paint her father.
So Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderon was born on July 6, 1907, in Coyoacán, I probably butchered that, Mexico. Her mother and maternal grandparents were of Mexican origin, and her father and paternal grandparents were of German origin. Frida rebelled against her mother's convention and her Catholicism and identified much more strongly with her father. He had a special tenderness for her out of all his daughters because she was the most like him. Like Frida, her father was an artist and a photographer.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Frida's mother was unable to breastfeed due to the birth of her sister, Christina, and Frida was fed by a wet nurse. She never had a close relationship with her mother. So portraits of Kahlo's family helped to illustrate this dynamic. The picture called My Grandparents' Parents and Me was painted in 1936. It depicts a family tree with a young Frida standing in front of her family, as well as depicted as a fetus inside her mother's womb. The faces of her family members are impassive, with her parents showing little warmth to one another. The red ribbon ties the family together, but young Frida seems to be slightly outside the circle, perhaps representing her feelings about being an outsider, holding the ribbon bunched in her hand.
Seems there's a commentary about, the thread, the children are the thread that holds the family together and all that, and perhaps there wasn't much love in the home because of that.
There really wasn't. Frida had a long history of both illness and injury. At the age of 6, she caught polio and was forced to remain bedridden for several months. Although the disease was not overly debilitating, Frida's right leg remained shorter than the left, and she was forced to wear built-up shoes. It is also suspected that Frida suffered from spina bifida as a child. Her friend, Dr. Leo Eloser, conducted x-rays and said that they showed a spina bifida. The decreased sensitivity in the lower part of her body was characteristically compatible with this disorder.
Yeah.
Her disability grew, and various operations on her right foot and leg made matters worse.
And that was in the early 1900s.
Yeah, she was born in 1907, right?
Like, you're not going to get any, slick modern medicine treatment in like a nice fiberglass frame to help hold your body up. Like,
exactly.
They didn't have that back then.
No. And to hide the disorder, she wore these long, starched Mexican shirts just to basically hide everything. Frida never really acknowledged this, and unfortunately, no medical records remain. She instead attributed her deformations to outside trauma, such as polio, and the serious bus crash that I'll talk about later.
18-year-old passenger Frida Kahlo suffers catastrophic injuries: a broken spinal column, pelvis, collarbone, rib cage, right leg, crushed right foot, and an abdomen and uterus pierced by a metal handrail from the bus.
However, the picture she painted in 1938, entitled What I Saw in the Water, this one, illustrates various events from her life that allude to her suffering from spina bifida. The painting's dominant element is a pair of feet sticking out of the bathtub water. We can clearly see the bleeding sore between the deformed big and second toes on the right foot, a typical defect accompanying congenital diaphragms, including spina bifida. Although Frida herself never acknowledged the existence of the disease, I feel that there is sufficient evidence to support the claim, and it certainly seems to have influenced some of her work.
Yeah, it seems like maybe she took a lot of reflection one day in a bathtub and found a lot of her horrors there staring back at her.
Yeah.
Something very unsettling about the composition of it.
Yeah.
Looks like most of her pictures are pretty
I guess so.
wacky.
Of course, I'll be linking to all these on the social media accounts.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow us on those.
I feel bad that I only know Frida Kahlo as a meme from a weird, eccentric British TV show. That
right?
Maybe one of if you're the one follower of Oddpod who knows about Noel Fielding's luxury comedy, you post on that Facebook group. We're gonna be friends.
Send an email. I'll hook you guys up.
Nice.
Yeah.
So one of the most well-known of Kahlo's maladies, however, is her vehicle accident. In 1925, at the age of 18, Frida was involved in a tram crash, which left her in pain for the remainder of her life. The bus that she was riding on collided with a tram, killing several people instantly. Frida sustained such serious injuries that doctors were unsure if she would survive. Due to multiple traumas, her spine was injured in several places, the right foot and leg broken, and her pelvis badly damaged by a piece of metal handrail. One of the reasons she was unable to carry a child to term. She was confined to bed for 3 months.
Yeah. And in 1925, you said?
Yeah, 1925, she was 18.
Oh, geez. So safety regulations and like a vehicle crumpling to absorb the impact, that hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah.
And everything's made of metal, so the impact of the crash is focused on the bodies of the people within the vehicles.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly, and she was just right fucked because of it.
Yeah.
Because she was bedridden, Frida turned to painting to pass the time. She drew a sketch of what occurred, entitled The Accident, which is this one, that illustrated the events of that day. It shows Frida lying in a pool of blood and covered with bandages. The abstract violence of the actual crash with figures lying dead around the bus and the tram are raw, emotional, and evocative. The pain that Frida was feeling at the time of its creation is obvious. This feeling is echoed throughout many of Kahlo's other works. One of her most famous works, The Broken Column, is also very strongly influenced by the tram accident.
We can all agree that Frida Kahlo isn't really known for her subtlety, but that's not really the point of Frida. The power of her work lies in her unflinching ability to lay it all out on the table, always creating the frankest expression of herself. Frida painted The Broken Column later in life after she had spinal surgery, one of many painful procedures resulting from a bus accident in her teens that shattered much of her skeleton and left her in agony for the rest of her life. The constrictive body brace that she depicts in the painting is entirely literal, since Frida herself was perpetually bound by a steel corset. She paints a fragmented column within a fissure in her flesh, which stands in for her broken spinal column. The Broken Column is unique among Frida's many self-portraits in that it portrays her in complete isolation, without the lush foliage and comforting monkeys that lend color and life to her usual work. The Broken Column hangs in the Dolores Olmedo Museum in Mexico City. Dolores Olmedo was a flamboyant socialite, lifelong friend, and some say lover of Diego Rivera. She was intensely jealous of Frida and hated her artwork, but she did buy a large portion of it after Frida's death as a personal favor to Diego. Some say that she bought the paintings in order to deliberately keep them out of the public eye.
The picture was painted shortly after Frida underwent spinal surgery, and the symbolism is undeniable. Frida looks defiantly at the viewer like a queen, her eyes fierce and her face resolute. Her bare breasts are also boldly displayed, a controversial and not often seen subject at the time. For all this provocative present imagery, there's still a vulnerability. Her chest is open, exposing a stone column where Frida's spine should be. Her body's being held together by the straps of a corset, which is a garment that she was forced to wear during recovery from her accident after it was discovered, after a seeming recovery, that several of her vertebrae were displaced. The corset in the painting seems to be very indicative of how constrained and trapped Frida was feeling, physically confined to a hospital bed and unable to move, and emotionally confined to her marriage to Diego Rivera. There are also many small nails sticking out of Kahlo's flesh, perhaps representative of the many pains that Kahlo had already endured in her life. More on that to come.
Yeah, and like people are still pearl clutching about nudity in arts like today, so I can't even imagine like people freaking out about this back then.
Yeah,
but
it's a pretty powerful painting.
Yeah,
you can see the stoicism in her, but it really, I don't know, I feel like the vulnerability that you would feel in that situation is really represented there.
Yeah, well, she's like on a desolate background, like she's the only focus of the picture. Mm-hmm. It's pretty emotional.
Yeah, it's almost, I think stoic's a good word for it. It's almost, she's expressing the silent pain hidden, and it seems like that carving out of her body is showing like some of the damage within, and the nails may represent the damage on the outside.
Right.
Diego Rivera, he wasn't particularly, I guess the relationship wasn't all that great.
Oh, I'll get into
You'll
that.
get into that?
Yeah, I'm going to get into it right now.
Oh, okay.
So Kahlo was quoted as saying, "I have suffered 2 grave accidents in my life. One in which a trolley car ran me over when I was 16 years old, fractured my spine, 20 years of immobility. The other accident was Diego."
There are many paintings by Diego Rivera that are of importance, but first of all, let's talk about who this guy was. Diego Rivera was a Mexican artist who was trained in Mexico, but in 1913, he left for Paris and Madrid to study, And when he came back, he was completely changed. Not only had he had the chance to see great works of art, but he realized that works in Mexico were lacking. And he brought back with him a style which was going to be the foundation for Mexican murals. And he's the one who started the Mexican mural renaissance. And if you go to Mexico today, there's many paintings by Diego Rivera on walls all over the city. Detroit has two very important works by Diego Rivera. They deal with industry. And his life, I'm sure, had something to do with the kinds of things that he painted. He painted the oppressed peasants. He was actually a member of the Communist Party. He was one of the founding members of Mexico's Communist Party. And I'm sure that this had an influence in how he painted the people. He painted the simple people of Mexico. He was able to recreate them in their native costumes, carrying things, doing things in the city. And in 1929, he met pretty much his alter ego, Frida Kahlo, and he married her. And together, they were able to pretty much bring Mexico to the forefront of art all over the world, which today we value with a great deal of pride.
So here's a picture of Frida and Diego.
Oh, goody.
Frida Kahlo and famed Mexican muralist Diego Rivera first met at Frida's school when Frida was only 13 years old and Diego was 31 years old.
Oh, yikes.
Yep. Frida was described as a bright but neglectful student, a madcap tomboy, ringleader of a gang of mischievous youngsters of both sexes that kept the hall of the Preparatoria in turmoil. So Frida, in her youthful exuberance, often made Rivera the butt of her pranks. When Frida suffered her tram accident, Rivera would often visit her in the hospital. Now 18 and quite beautiful, Frida became a fascination to Diego. He helped her with her art, and they ended up spending many hours together. The relationship gradually evolved from that of a youthful girl and an older artist to something more romantic. Although Diego had many affairs during this time of friendship, he still developed feelings for Frida. They ended up becoming engaged, even after warnings from Frida's father that he was a devil. The relationship was a creative and dynamic one. Although their styles were very different, Kahlo being more surrealistic and Rivera being a master of the popular Mexican muralist style, both of their passions for art was a glue that held them together. Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera were married on August 29th, 1929. Diego was 42 and Frida was 22. Their marriage was both tumultuous and alienating, with Rivera committing adultery on numerous occasions. Frida also ended up taking lovers, including prominent Soviet communist Leon Trotsky, who was living in exile with Kahlo and Rivera at the time.
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And back then, infidelity was a lot easier to hide.
Yep,
Like,
exactly.
There wasn't
the days before Facebook.
Yeah.
So if he was knowingly being an adulteress, he must have been doing it out in the open and proud.
Yep. The very fact that Frida took a lover while being married showed how extraordinary and dynamic a woman she was. It went completely against all societal norms and conventions. If Diego could have extramarital affairs, so could Frida.
Hi there, I'm Nicholas Casimia, and I'm here with a guest curator and professor at Occultae University, Dot Tour. What was your goal going into this exhibition?
I wanted to tell a story about the two artists together. They were soulmates. They married because it was at the time, and then but because they shared their convictions, their political convictions, because they shared their vision of a new Mexico, because they shared their vision of flaunting social conventions, being part of a bohemian world. All of that is what brought them together.
Why do you think her work, and she is so identified with the queer community?
She broke a lot of taboos. Things like the very early miscarriage work. These are astonishingly revealing and unusual paintings for a woman to make in the 1920s and the 1930s. They're not moralizing. They're not about bad or good or. There's absolutely no morality to them, and I think that may attract people. In terms of playing with the physicality, someone actually came up to me and said, well, why does she accentuate the mustache and the eyebrows in her paintings when she was much prettier in real life? So I thought it was a very interesting and odd comment because, in fact, I find her quite beautiful. I think in terms of her painting, it was to create a signature style, and it was to blur in some way the boundaries of her identity. The dresses and lines are quite feminine. So you counterbalance that by accentuating perhaps some of the more masculine attributes of your appearance. And it creates this quite an interesting mix, a little bit of gender bending, we might say, that is going on.
It's also interesting because both of them had very complicated love lives.
Yes. Neither of them believed in monogamy. They were very liberal for their time. They were part of a bohemian world. They married each other, but it wasn't about, we're going to marry and now we're going to give up our love lives.
Right.
She was having affairs almost from the very beginning as well.
With men and women, correct?
You know, this is a question where long after the fact, people love to ascribe things. She did have later in life, a very close circle of women, and I would say very intimate relationships with women. Whether she actually had an affair with Tina Modotti or not, or whether she actually, we really don't know. But I think that, so I actually prefer, rather than the word affair, I would just say that she had a tremendous intimacy with women.
So the self-portrait, this is called Diego and I, was painted in 1949 and depicts the duality of how Frida felt about her relationship with Rivera. He is a part of her, but she's not necessarily happy about it. She was deeply hurt by his infidelity, yet he always remained in her thoughts.
Yeah, I kind of understand that dichotomy, kind of that internal hypocrisy, like the bad people you've met and the ways they've hurt you and the bad experiences you had, like, they all result in who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, would I take it back?
Right. So during her terrible tram accident, Frida was impaled by a rail that went straight through her vagina.
Jesus.
Oh. Yeah, like it went in through her body and went out right through her vagina.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So this caused her to be unable to carry child to term.
In 1925?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, like this lady had a hell of a life.
That was still in the whole, like, oh boy, he's hurting bad. Let's inject him with a bunch of cocaine.
Yep. I like that voice. Yeah. So she and Diego did conceive, but unfortunately, due to the trauma to her reproductive organs and her poor health in general, Frida miscarried all of them. In the culture to which Kahlo belonged, miscarriage was a source of shame, the abject failure of a socially conditioned expectation of motherhood, and a travesty of creation in which birth yields only death and detritus. The loss of her potential children was devastating for Frida. There was not, and still is not, a ritual or comfort for women who suffer from miscarriages. Kahlo attempted to work through some of her pain through her art. Henry Ford Hospital, painted in 1932, which I'll show you in a minute, is an almost visceral depiction of her anguish after a miscarriage preceding a particularly risky pregnancy. Frida is shown lying in a hospital bed in a pool of her own blood. Instead of the sterile walls of a hospital, the bed is shown in the middle of a wide and desolate landscape, perhaps representative of the loneliness she felt in her marriage with Diego. Parts of her body and her unborn child are separate and seem to be floating around her, yet still tethered to her womb by red ribbons. This is representative of her feelings of separation and betrayal by her own body. The flower lying beneath the bed seems to be wilting, representative of Frida's failed reproductive health. The illness and trauma that Frida experienced through her life is clearly represented in this image. Her raw and honest portrayal of the traumatic feelings experienced during her miscarriages is unprecedented.
And we looked through kind of the attitudes towards that in the Quiverful movement. Like, the Quiverful movement draws its philosophies from, like, people in this time and antiquated views. So if she was miscarrying, society would see it as her problem.
Yeah, her failure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's got to be hard, especially if you want children.
Yep. So it's still a taboo subject that remains taboo to this day. Miscarriage is often mourned in private. Frida displayed her experience and her pain to the entire world. Although she may have been physically frail, her resolution and honesty was anything but. Frida Kahlo experienced many hardships throughout her short life. On July 14th, 1954, at the age of 43, Frida lost her long battle with illness and injuries, passing away in her sleep.
In spite of my long illness, I feel immense joy in living. In the spring of 1953, Frida's dear friend Lola Alvarez Bravo, who ran an art gallery in Mexico City, decided to exhibit Frida's work. Despite her celebrity in international circles, she had never had a show at home. It was clear that Frida was near death, and Bravo wanted to honor her during her lifetime.
It was getting late. The small gallery was full of friends and people who wanted to see the works of Frida. The walls had lots of pictures that I didn't know. Time passed and the teacher didn't arrive because the doctor told her she couldn't leave her bed. So they took her bed. She arrived in an ambulance, bed and all, and presided with great happiness. Her only exposition in Mexico.
Friends, students, critics, and strangers crowded around her bed all evening. It was a huge party, with tequila, laughter, guitars, and singing. It was, one friend put it, the kind of performance that she loved. Colorful, surprising, intensely human, and a little morbid. Bravo received calls from Paris, London, and across the U.S. asking about the show. A prominent critic summarized the experience. It is impossible to separate the life and work of this singular person. Her paintings are her autobiography. 2 months later, Frida's doctors decided that they would have to amputate the bottom half of her right leg. She is going to die, Diego said. This is going to kill her. Her last painting was a lavish still life of cut watermelons. 8 days before she died, she inscribed the bottom with her name, the date, and the place, Coyoacán, Mexico. Then she wrote in large letters her parting words. Viva la vida. Long live life.
I hope the leaving is joyful, and I hope I never return.
She practiced her art right up until her death. One of her final paintings being an homage to the Communist Party. It's called Marxism Will Give Health to the Sick. And I'll show it to you in a second. Was painted in 1954 and shows Frida caught between the duality of health and happiness on one side and corruption and violence on the other. The painting style seems a bit more rushed and juvenile than many of her previous works, but it still possesses the dignity present in all her paintings, a testament to her strong and unbreakable spirit.
I mean, if she was truly on her deathbed, she might have been putting the last bits of her energy into it.
Yeah. So in conclusion, Frida Kahlo was a very strong and tragic woman. Through her battles with polio, spina bifida, a traumatic car crash, a tempestuous marriage, miscarriages, and an early death, she remained committed to her craft. Kahlo unflinchingly examined topics that even today are considered unmentionable and are uncomfortable to think about. Her constant commitment to herself is astounding and inspiring. Right up until the end of her tragically short life, Frida maintained her dignity and her integrity. Her subject matter is what initially fascinated me, but her life is truly inspiring and something that I will carry with me forever. The end.
I had no idea she had suffered so much.
Yeah. Like, it's just wild how much shit she's been through.
It's interesting. It seems like she was able to express like all of her inner anguish and insecurities through her art that maybe society wouldn't have let her express otherwise.
Exactly. And she was a big, mega popular painter.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the pieces that I've seen so far, you just like you look at them and like those feelings, you feel it just by looking at it. Like like you don't have to know the story. You look at it and you
like,
and you feel that.
Yeah.
It's like somebody inviting you to read their diary and read their hardest moments and all that. And I imagine, like, the hardest pains in her life being expressed for so many people to see it. It's got to be stressful yet freeing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, she's a pretty interesting woman.
And did it happen that since she was ahead of her time, her impact on art and feminism wasn't seen until later on? Or
well, right now she's such like a white feminists use her work as like pop feminism. Like she's the picture of her with like the eyebrows that touch in the middle and the flower crowns and the Mexican shirts, like they're pretty recognizable.
Yeah.
So lots of people have co-opted her image on merchandise, which she would have been against because she was a member of the Communist Party.
Yeah.
Like it,
like a Che shirt sort of thing.
Yeah, like the Che shirts. Like she's just kind of been co-opted by capitalists and pop feminists.
Yeah, somebody who's totally against capitalism being made into a product.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, and she's like, lots of people don't know nothing about her except for that she wore flower crowns and had eyebrows that touched.
Yeah,
right.
Haha, weird design. Buy it on T-shirt.
Yeah.
So, do you think that she would have much rather been talked about and her work talked about rather than just being made into T-shirts and posters? And all that?
Yeah, for sure. Like she obviously had important things to say and she wasn't scared to say them.
There was obviously intent behind her works.
Yeah, she wasn't just like drawing flowers or something. Like no offense to people that just draw flowers, but like her paintings are chock full of symbolism and emotion. And
so let me ask you this: you mentioned that even through to this day, there's a lack of support for people who have suffered miscarriages.
Yes, that's why so many women don't announce or families don't announce their pregnancy until after like the 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, it is a traumatic thing for sure.
Well, including our Leon.
Yeah. So, as friends and family members, what can we do to support people when they go through something like that?
Just be there for them. Like I have been fortunate enough to have never have experienced a miscarriage, but I know a few of my friends have, and it's awful. It's the loss of something that, like the loss of a potential that was never able to come to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, don't just be like, oh, well, it's okay, you can just make another one. Like it's a very real loss for these families.
Just be supportive.
Just be supportive and don't like don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And also when like April Fool's rolls around, like don't do the haha I'm pregnant joke. That's not cool either.
That's always in poor taste for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And don't be flippant about asking people about their personal lives if you don't know their history. Like
why don't you have kids? I've suffered 5 miscarriages. It's not that I didn't want it.
None of your fucking business. How about that?
Yeah. I think people just need to be more considerate and realize that, like, the standard script they feel everybody should follow isn't how things turn out all the time.
Exactly.
Be good, do better.
Yeah, be good, do better.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that one. It's a bit different. Looking at art history, there's lots of mysterious things out there in the world and things to talk about besides murder and death, so sometimes we like to get eclectic. For the palate cleanser, I have admirer of Frida Kahlo, star parody, and her piano composition, The Heart of Frida. Once again, with the after show, I'm Ood Gallifrey.
Fidgebury.
Leon Filger.
And today we have something very special. Now, if you're a member of our Patreon, you already know that it is the one place where you can give up prayers to Val, and us as hosts will repeat them.
Oh, sweet Valhalla.
Yeah.
God bless her.
And if you're a patron and haven't done it, go on Patreon, find the post that's attached to Valhalla's name on the tag, and you can give her a prayer or a praise or a smite and whatever you want. So I'm thinking we can read 2 at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Val's cool as hell, so.
Oh yeah, she's the chillest goddess ever.
Yeah.
So this first one is from Lainey Moore.
Lainey.
Praise Valhalla and her beautiful self. Valhalla, I ask you to smite my coworker because he is sexist and doesn't understand the word no.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck him.
Praise Val.
Val will smite him.
Yeah.
You have to use the slower, deeper, more deliberate.
Oh yes.
Praise Val.
Val, please. Please take a lightning bolt and strike this man directly on the penis and make into a burnt piece of cauliflower.
Daniel has died.
Okay, the second one is from Papa Bray.
Papa Bray, I love you, Papa Bray.
Yeah. Follow Papa Bray on their Twitch stream.
On their tit stream.
I mean,
tit stream.
Who knows? Who knows? They're a very eclectic person. It might be a tit stream someday. It might be gaming other days. Who knows?
Water flowing across those tits.
But Papa Bray, instead of a prayer, they just put a declaration. I will ride the eternal on the highways of Valhalla.
Oh, me too.
Praise be Valhalla.
Praise be Valhalla.
Praise be.
Okay.
Did you know that I polka'd with her? I polka'd
Yeah.
with Valhalla at Lauren Calvert's party.
Oh man, you
I
dance.
polka'd with Lauren Calvert at Lauren Calvert's party.
You dance with the devil. That's pretty sweet. Who's Yahweh in our
Religion. Who is the heel?
Yeah, who's Yahweh in our? Because she's definitely the greatest devil ever. So who's our Yahweh that we're fighting against?
Need we have one?
I don't know.
I don't know. Let's not think too much about it.
Yeah.
Ooh, fun.
That's for the second highest tier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you guys. So we got a prayer to Valhalla from the Church of the Immaculate Facepalm.
Oh my.
Who is that Christian podcast who likes us?
Yeah.
I like them too. Like I don't know. Like that's really sweet. Okay, they said, Mistress Valhalla, we beg you to smite Donald Trump. He has been a pinnacle of asshattery.
Yeah.
And the next is from Orlaith McGrath, who I recognize. Oh, I love you, Orlaith. Okay. Val, I want to say that I'm grateful for all that I have in life, and I would like to share those blessings with others. Please look favorably upon us, the podcast listeners. You know what? I bet Valhalla will, because she's fucking cool as hell.
Yes. I praise and pray for Valhalla to give everybody that listens to this podcast one less toe stubbing in their life.
Yep. I talk to Valhalla every day, and she is the most benevolent of goddesses.
Oh, she's very kind as long as you please her.
Yeah.
This next intention from Stainless Steel Rat. Quote, I pray that the goddess Valhalla would deliver a horror movie that leaves me terrified and empty before Halloween.
Oh my god, me too! Okay, do that. Valhalla, please do that.
Do you want me to do that one?
Okay, sorry, do it again. I'm really excited about a horror movie that leaves me terrified and empty.
You want me to do the whole thing again?
No, I just want a horror movie that scares me.
Oh, okay.
That isn't E.T. That movie fucking scared the shit out of me.
Okay, so the next one from Atrophonian.
Oh, Atrophonian.
Who's in the room?
Yes. Okay,
Who
we
says,
love Atrophonian.
Quote, Praise Val, I prostrate my love before you, a humbled and unworthy soul.
Oh, yeah,
let's let the man read his own fucking intention. Here.
Yes.
Praise Val. I prostrate myself before you, a humbled and unworthy soul, with mere delusions of mediocrity to my name. I desire that your will be done and merely ask that I will be spared when the world is remade in your beauteous image, and that I will not be blinded by your divine appearance. The tears that fall from my face will be the only things that your foes will be permitted to sip, containing only salt and my own awe. Hail, Val, hail.
And Julie.
I would listen to you read a book to me.
Yeah, Julie.
Yes. Where's Val?
Yeah, Juilliard can kiss your ass.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope Val buys you a solid gold toilet.
I hope she does too.
Yeah. Praise
I'll talk
Val.
to her about it. I don't think she's into that.
Yeah. And our last prayer to Val for this one is from Kate Marek.
Oh, Kate.
It reads, Hail Val, I prostrate myself before her majesty and praise her name.
You should.
Oh, everybody's prostrating.
I'm prostrating.
You can't neglect the prostrate.
I pray that Val will smite my ex so that his dick falls off, for he knows not how to use it.
Sounds
Hey,
like
fuck
prostate
that guy.
cancer.
Fuck that guy.
No, don't fuck that guy.
No,
Yeah.
don't fuck that guy, but we hate him.
Yeah.
He's our enemy now.
All praise Val, hallowed be her name.
I hope he gets prostate cancer.
Yeah.
No, you can't wish that upon people.
I hope
You just say fuck that guy.
I hope his dick turns into a snake of the venomous variety. Praise Val.
Snake dick? Snake dick.
Yeah, and I'm going to delete stuff as we read it and as it goes up on the podcast, but that thread will always stay up. So keep on posting at it, and eventually we will read your prayer to Val. And anytime you want to curse or smite or praise or give thanks, we will be here to give your prayer to our goddess Valhalla.
Yep, we do love Valhalla.
No?
Here, here.
Hello, occultists. This is Leon Filger. I'm going to be doing an upcoming episode or series of episodes on a chronology of space disasters. And I just wanted to let you know that the latest space disaster happened this morning. It's currently Sunday, the 14th of October, and early this morning in Star City, Kazakhstan, a Soyuz spacecraft took off with 2 people on board. It did not make it to space. It got to a point called stage separation where some boosters were supposed to drop off, but that didn't happen. Instead, they stayed stuck together. The capsule had to abort the mission, came down under parachute, and landed 800 miles away from the launch site. The astronaut and cosmonaut on board were recovered safely, but they didn't get to the space station, which is bad because the current Soyuz capsule at the space station is only good until December. It expires at that point and has to come back to Earth with 3 people on board. So it's going to be interesting to see what Roscosmos does trying to fix this screw-up. I'm Leon Filger.
From Occultae Veritatis with the After Show, I'm Oud Gallifrey.
Sage Murray.
Leon Filger.
Have a good night.
Cheers.
Praise
Love you, bye.